Hey, all you rad dads out there.
All right, Jim, thanks for coming back to the Rad Dads Show. The
Yeah, I feel
OG.
like I'm the OG Rad Dad, so I can get a multiple appearance.
You bet. You're the only second guest to have a multiple appearance. So
Wow, that's an honor.
there we go. Yeah, the OG Rad Dad is back. Let's do a little quick check-in with the fam on the home front. Anything
Wow, it's a tough time. My youngest daughter, who you saw on the cover of the book when she was riding a tricycle still, and I think she's about 5 years old. She is now a junior in college and is studying abroad, and she is going to her next year of college. She is going to take a internship up in up Northern California, and so she's pretty much moving away uh, after this year. So this was the last summer that we had a daughter at home. All of them have flown the coop and moved on. I have one daughter in New York and one still in LA, but lives on her own. And now the other one's getting set to do her own thing. So we're pretty much empty nesters now, and that takes some adjusting, walking around looking at all the empty bedrooms with all the dolls left in there.
yeah, how do you cope?
I go on tour, I guess, and it did involve a lot of red wine late at night and feeling sorry for myself. But I've decided that's not the healthiest way to deal with it. So I'm, a lot of FaceTime calls and stuff like that. We just did a big family FaceTime call yesterday and got caught up with everyone. So thank goodness for video calls like this one.
Yeah, totally, right. That technology. Was it much different though, like in the fact that when you were on tour and stuff like that, being a touring musician and having that ability to kind of touch
You
base.
know, Skype was a game changer. It really was because it really made you feel like you could be there when I'm in Europe or Australia or somewhere. I could see them when they come home and they would love to tell me about their, day at school on the computer. And so it actually was really, really helpful. That development kind of happened right as my kids were young. So yeah, it's really nice to be able to see their face when you come home from a month-long tour and you haven't seen family in a while. It's a trip.
There we go, for sure. Okay, the real reason we're here, the new album with the Black Pacific. 14 years, why the gap?
Well, you might have heard I rejoined my band Pennywise, and um, we wanted to do a lot of touring and stuff like that, and basically I still have over the last my entire career being a musician, I have tons and tons of songs, literally boxes of cassette tapes and CDs full of songs I've written. I never know where they're going to go, if they're going to be a song that Pennywise is going to want, or if they're going to be on an acoustic album, or maybe they're better for a side project. So some of these songs I'd written 20 years ago, and some of them I presented to Pennywise and they weren't right for whatever reason. And then a good batch of them I wrote when I was working on songs for the Black Pacific. And in fact, the song Best Day Ever is a song that I was the first song that I wrote with Alan Vega, our drummer for Black Pacific, and fantastic drummer, great guy, and really easy to work with. And we just wrote a bunch of songs. So, I did an album with Pennywise, did two albums with Pennywise after I got back in the band. An album called Yesterdays that was a bunch of really old songs and B-sides. And then we did the Never Gonna Die album. And then the last 5, 6 years, I was really itching to get in there and want to record some of these songs that I had. And multiple times asked like, hey, let's get back in the studio, but there always seemed to be the next tour, the next this, and it just seemed like it was never going to happen. So I said, fine, I'm going to go in and do these songs on my own. I always wanted to produce songs on my own and call all the shots in the studio. not always easy with Pennywise. We have some very strong personalities in that band that want to do things their way. And so uh, I really didn't want to compromise on this batch. A lot of them were more personal than your usual Pennywise songs. So I went in there and recorded it.
Nice. So I was listening to an interview, you said that you kind of write for a particular audience with Pennywise, just kind of based on what you were saying. Is that kind of true with Black Pacific or not? Like, do you have a theme
No,
again or?
I think, you know, I'm not sure how much, you know, I think what happened with Pennywise is with each album, our target, instead of getting bigger, our target got smaller and smaller because wanting to give the fans what they wanted in the sense of they want to hear really fast skate punk and
Mhm.
they don't want to hear about how much I love my wife or how much I love surfing or things like that. They want to hear the anthemic, you know, pit songs that are going to get people going. So um, to a certain extent, there was a lot of times where I would write a song and I would be like, "There's no way Pennywise is going to play this." Like the song "Alien" was a perfect example, which ended up being our first song to get real radio play. And that was one that I was like, guys, this song is so depressing and sad, and it's just terrible. Like, you're never going to want to play this, but here it is, anyways. And Fletcher was the first one. No, no, that could be really good. Like, you know, let's try it. And then it was on the album, and you know, so there were times where you know we'd try and branch out a little bit and try some different stuff. But with this record, it was definitely a desire to just put out the message that I wanted to put out. And I really thought some of these songs, especially I think I'm Paranoid and No Fun and Here We Come, which are about, you know, everything going on in the world and then AI invasion that's coming. I thought they were very timely, and I wanted to put them out right now. I was like, these songs aren't going to be as relevant in a few years unless I put them out right now. So if you guys don't want to go in, I'm going to go in and put these out. So as I've said before, when I pick up an electric guitar, this is the type of music that comes out, whether it's going to be a Pennywise song or a Wrath song or a you know acoustic album song. So uh, I can't really explain it. It just I write what I write.
There we go. So you kind of mentioned those songs, thinking Paranoid, No Fun, Here We Come. It's they kind of have darker themes, kind of the divisiveness stuff that Pennywise kind of sings about too as well. And so tying into that kind of parenting kind of piece, is there hope? Do we have hope in terms of our kids or?
Well, you really nailed it on the head right there because that's what this is all about. The paranoia that I'm talking about militias and Antifa and climate change and killer bees and everything that you have to be worried about reading the newspaper or watching the nightly news. That's because I'm worried about my kids and the world they're going to inherit. And also the song "Here We Come" that is about AI. I think some music critics out there would say that's very cringy to write a song about AI, but it's a real threat. In many ways, it could be a tremendous aid to society and humanity, and that I think it's going to be able to do a lot of medical good, and that it's going to be able to find um, diagnosis that we couldn't find before. It could be able to make synthetic drugs that could help people out in all kinds of ways, could help mental health things with schizophrenia and sociopathy, all kinds of things. But there's a huge threat, as we're seeing in Los Angeles and the creative industry and the movie industry and the video game industry and all this stuff with intellectual property of that AI can do all of this stuff easier, faster, cheaper, all the above. And how does that look? Uh, AI could do your job. There was scary, really scary story that just came out today. I'll try and send it to you. It's on Evolving AI. There's a website called that, but it freaked me out so bad. I always post little things when I see things about AI that's going to freak you out. But someone did a completely artificial intelligence podcast with two podcast hosts that are not real people. They are AI personalities, and the show episode was them discovering that they weren't real, and
Oh,
so they're
wow.
having this podcast just like you and I, and that the personalities seem so real. They're talking over each other just like you and I talk over each other, but they're talking about the fact like, wow, our producers just told us that we are AI, and I really don't know how to handle that. Like that's really crazy, and that's what I'm talking about is like the fact that we can be replicated in every, like someone can right now, you can all do this, go online and you could say write a Pennywise song, okay, and it'll sound like this rabble rousing, today's the day we got to fight to make some change, and it'll sound great. So you don't need me anymore. So you don't need to buy my records, and it's a huge threat. My first daughter, when I started talking to her about it, she was like, "Oh, Dad, you guys are all just, it's not that big a deal." I'm like, honey, it's going to be a really big deal. It's going to be a revolution, and I think some people that are so worried about socialism in the United States are going to be begging for it in about a year and a half.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I don't know if you remember, I'm a school teacher, and so we've been kind of having that conversation at school, and even as last week I was talking with some staff. We were actually creating lesson plans for our health class to using ChatGPT to see kind of what that could produce. So you talk about replacing me in my job. Quite easily, you could get someone who is less qualified in terms of education, and just type in a program outcome from the program of studies, and it spit out a 40-minute lesson just like that, and it basically instructed us what to do. And so yeah, it just kind of got me thinking about what that looks like in the future for education, of course.
Well, this is really important because we're in the stage right now of black and white TV. We're at the very, very beginning where it's going to look like black and white television did to people in the 50s. Like, oh, like I understand this. It doesn't look that great. It doesn't look like real life. And think how long it took from that to go into the 60s and color television when, hey, it's starting to look more like real life, and now you can really envision it. And then it took, you know, then it was only a matter of time between flat screen TVs, 4K, and things looking hyper realistic. And this is what Ray Kurzweil and Elon Musk has warned us about. Those changes that took 10 years in the 50s are going to take 10 seconds now. They're going to take, our human brains aren't going to be able to keep up with the pace of change, and that's the singularity. When all of a sudden the computers start going, I don't want to sound like I'm a Arnold Schwarzenegger film of the Terminator, but when the computers start realizing, like, wow, I'm dealing with these animals that are so slow. Like, come on, humans, like, keep up with us here. You tried to cure cancer for 100 years, but we just did it this afternoon, and they're just going to think that we're just like the ultimate losers.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting, in terms
Yeah.
of education. And in the last 2 years, I was actually working at the university with engineering professors and helping them with their pedagogy and looking at some of their research that they're doing with AI. And you talked about the medical piece, like it's pretty amazing, and can definitely see some benefits there. But, I had my issue that I had last week was a student using AI to do their social studies paragraph, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
the
It's
argument was like,
crazy.
well, he's like, I'm done. Well, it's not yours, but he's like, I'm using the tools that have been provided, and it's like, there's no
Well,
argument for that.
yeah, homework is going to be so 90s, or just 2000s, like what's homework? I just chat GPT does it in a second. It's absolutely crazy. And then think about Neuralink pretty soon. Like, I hate to break the news to you, but uh, for a Spanish teacher out there or a French teacher, you're just going to be able to slide that into your temple there, and you're going to know 8 different languages in a matter of seconds. So, yeah, teachers should be worried. Singers of punk bands should be worried. People who write scripts for television shows should be worried. We should all be very concerned about what's going on. I mean, there's been a lot of reasons why there's been such a slowdown in the entertainment industry, but I think behind the scenes, that's what it really is not everyone's admitting it, but the executives way up there, they can see what's on the horizon. And that's why there's this coagulation in the courts right now, is they're like, the genie's out of the bottle. How do we deal with it?
Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be interesting.
Do
Stay
you
tuned.
think it's similar at all to, when Napster and file sharing and all of that, or is this a bigger threat, quote unquote?
Oh yeah, it's way huger, bigger. The Napster thing was just to us poor musicians, and some other intellectual property situations. Um, and yeah, that was really rough. I remember going that uh, summer that went down. My friend, uh, big Pennywise fan, he'd say, "Hey, my friend came over and he gave me all your albums, like on this little disc. I had all your songs. I can listen in my car now, and I don't have to do the CD player. I can just listen to all your songs." And I'm like, "Great, great, good for you. You just stole all my whole catalog." But I think in this situation, I listened to a really interesting story about, I think he's a former exec at Google, and although I probably just set off a bunch of alarms by saying that, they're probably uh, videotaping this call now, but he was talking about the AI situation, and one part about it being so crazy that, look at something like TikTok, or a platform like Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. Um, the ability now for someone to just say, "Hey, AI, make me a platform exactly like TikTok, call it Bink Bunk, download all of their content, copy it, put it into mine, and then you're going to be able to copy any app, any idea out there, just like you copied a song back then." So that's why the danger of uh, intellectual property, or of us owning anything, is someone better be watching this thing, because it could get really crazy. You can copy anything and just give it a different name, or even give it the same name, but people won't realize that they've logged into the wrong account. So it's a brave new world out there. I think there's going to be a lot of policy out there that um, we're going to have to enact to protect people's intellectual property rights.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. So how do you kind of, like all those sort of themes that, kind of mention the AI piece, but also in no fun, I wanna say, kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, kind of a direct point your finger at Trump, maybe, that the whole sociopath kind of dictatorship type thing. How do you navigate those themes with kids?
With little kids or my kids?
I would say younger kids, but let's do kind of both.
Yeah. Well, it's tough, because when my kids were younger, I tried to shield them from things like 9/11. I remember watching 9/11 happening in real time while my daughters were running around with their dolls in between me and the TV. And oh, this is really strange. Like, do I tell them what's going on the television, or do I shield them from it? And so I think it's true with the song "No Fun" was directed at dictators all over the world, sociopathic dictators. And it really does think, does seem that when you look at what's going on in the world, whether it's the Ukraine or Gaza or Somalia or the drug cartels in South America, um, it's like there's this bloodthirstiness that is almost unquenchable, and like a race to see who can be the most deplorable. And like when you consider that uh, in ancient Greece and colonial times, wars were fought on a field with two opposing armies going at battle with spears and muskets, and now they bomb hospitals and schools and cities, and you know the idea of warfare has now become something that's completely out of control, and it's just who can out carnage each other, you know, and that. So how do you explain something like that to a 5-year-old? You know, you want them to run around and go to the playground and enjoy themselves. You don't want to be like, hey, put down Dolly for a second. There's been another invasion where little kids like you are being bombed out of their schools. You know, it's and but that goes with the violence in our schools that we're seeing in America. You know, it's something that I think you have to gradually make young people understand that this is a part of life and something that we're facing and have faced for a long time, and it's something we really got to fight against. And that's, you know, be getting involved, whether it's writing a punk song or getting out there and protesting in nonviolent ways and making an example of yourself for other people on how to do that, and not have it be this situation where you go out and start burning down things and have these you know, violent protests and stuff like that. There's a better way, and I think that's how we have to progress to that stage where we can uh, try and find some change out there. It's difficult, but hopefully the next generation is going to do a better job of it than we have.
Yeah, I hope so. You know, that's kind of one of the reasons that you know, I went into education. Is it's you know, it sounds maybe idealist, but you know, the basis of change is education, and
Yeah.
I really kind of believe that. With regards to songs, like any songs, I guess you could, you know, ask us about any of the songs that you've done or any albums, but for this particular album with the Black Pacific, any ones that really stick out to you, more meaningful, or are they all meaningful to you?
Well, with this album, I'm really happy that I've finally been able to write a couple songs that are directed at my wife. I don't think Pennywise is going to be too accepting if I'm writing on them a love song, but when I first played them for my wife, she listened to it. She's like, well, especially Float Away, because it says, how did we get so fucking bored in the chorus? But it really is a song of saying, you know, that I want to escape with her somewhere where we're not all staring at our phones all the time. Like let's escape somewhere, just me and you together. So it's a very romantic song in that sense. I'm saying, you know, like, how did we get to this place where we're so worried about college costs and the cost of living and staring at our phones and being up to date with content and all the above? You know, how do we get to this place? How do we find some time to escape it all? And I'd love to build a raft and just float away somewhere to Timbuktu and or Canada. I think I mentioned
Yeah,
Canada.
I think you
And
do.
so
Yeah.
we've done a lot of shows in Canada and up in Quebec and different areas. And a lot of times I'm out there on the lakes and I'm like, honey, we should just buy a lake house up here and just, you know, get away from it all. So look for me up there sometime soon.
I'm glad you explained that line. I was listening to the album a couple of days ago at the gym, and I was like, "Why is he saying that? I like, is this like a dig at his wife, or is it makes sense?"
No. That she wondered about it too. She finally got it. She's like, wait a minute, why are you saying this? And then I'm like, no, it's saying like, you know, any night, you know, you can be both sitting there in bed and both looking at your phones and like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
We're sitting here right next to each other. Let's go out. Let's have a good time. Let's do something. Let's get out of here. And that's the whole thing, because it's being like, I want to break from it all. So it really is escapism. And then there's another song called I Won't Let You Down. That's just kind of reflecting about all we've been through and the last how many years. We've been married since 1992 during the LA riots. So
Congrats.
we we've come a long ways, and kind of looking back, and now in the idea of enjoying a lot of sunsets at the beach is kind of a comforting feeling that we're going to stick it out to the end. So, and then I wrote a love song about surfing. So there's going to be no love songs on a Pennywise record. So I was glad I had the opportunity finally to put something in there that wasn't all with a fist in the air.
Right. Yeah, that that whole kind of disconnect. I think it's kind of coming full circle. I think more people are wanting to be disconnected from their phones. At least we're kind of seeing that in education. Our government recently mandated, a ban on cell phones in the classroom. And
That's
so
great.
what I've seen in my school, I'm actually the assistant principal of the school, and I just started that role this year, and it was something that I was like, how is this going to go? And it's actually been pretty receptive from the students. We see more students in the library, more students playing outside during, that time, less kind of that zombie kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just interesting to see kind of how it's slowly shifting. I've started teaching when the smartphone didn't exist, so I've seen this evolution, and it's been positive in some sense, but definitely some dark moments.
Yeah, and that's true. And I've read more and more things about how um, the constant phone use and our dopamine receptors of like you're constantly either loving or hating something. Like it's just all day long. Like you're getting these quick little blasts of pleasure and outrage and whatever, instead of like how we used to do it, like, hey, you spend your whole day doing what you do, and then at night you maybe watch the news and be upset about what's going on in the world. But now it's just like all day long, it's just coming at you like, oh man, Chris Christopherson died. That's terrible. Oh no, gee, this just happened. It's too much. You got to take a break.
Any touring plans for the record at all?
Not as of yet. We've got a lot lined up with Pennywise. We're on the Dropkick Murphys tour right now. We have the final No Effects show in San Pedro, which is going to be a trip. We have some stuff lined up for next year, but once the album's had a little time to live and breathe, I'd like to play some shows, but I don't think it'll be extensive touring, but I definitely plan on recording more. So once I get a good solid set list that I want to do, I think we'll get back out there and do a couple shows here and there.
That'd be sweet. Yeah, I saw you guys, the Black Pacific. You guys opened up for Flogging Molly in
Yeah.
Edmonton. Well, that was a number of years ago, but it'd be cool to see. Yeah, so you kind of touched on playing last shows with No Effects. Looking forward to that. How do you feel about them calling it quits? You have an opinion on that?
It's a weird one. And they've been our brother band from the very beginning. Like literally, I think the second time I went to Epitaph when we were just signing with them. The first time I went to Epitaph, I saw the S&M Airlines album. I wasn't familiar with them at all, kind of in my bubble down there. And then there they were doing the packaging for the Ribbed album. And I was like, oh wow, they're doing a condom for the album cover. That's fantastic. Whoever this band is, I love them already. They're great. And then Mike was in the warehouse the second time I went in there, and he's like, "Wow, you guys sold like 1,200 records. That's really good, man. Like, you guys should be happy." I'm like, "Oh, is that good? I didn't. I can't remember. Maybe it was 1,000, 12,000, or 1,200 or something." But like, he was like, "Yeah, your album's doing really well." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I didn't know that." And so just that, being so young and naive and starting out with them, Offspring, No Effects, Bad Religion. That was our core group of the guys at Epitaph, and to be still going this long, it's a major feat. So I don't fault Mike at all for uh, pulling the plug if he's not having 100% fun. I think that they could easily come back in a few years and play the Riot Fest or somewhere. But he has said emphatically this is the last time they're going to take the stage together. So I have to take him at his word, but at the same time, I don't believe it.
There we go. Yeah, the Kiss a la Kiss style, right?
Yeah, and the Who and Elton John, everyone who did a 10-year farewell tour but never stopped.
Yeah, we caught them in August. They were here in Edmonton, and we actually were teaming up with Emily from Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. So we did
Okay.
Punk is Dad coloring book, and so
Oh, I need one of those.
yeah, for sure. So these are the artists that we've had. Steve Cab, we had Mark DeSalvo, Brian from Bouncing Souls, Walsby, Chris Sherry, Descendants fame, yeah. So we created this book, and we have
Oh,
so we
wow.
just
Where
send
can you get
stuff
it?
what's that?
Where can I get one?
I'll send you. How many do you want?
Well, I'm trying to do a plug for you. Where can someone get one? You can
Oh,
send me one on the side, but I'm trying to do a plug.
well, you can get them only at the Rad Dads events in person right now, but we
Okay.
are sending some. We sent some yesterday to the last NoFX show, so they're going to be at the punk rock and paintbrush booth, I guess.
Well, I'll have to bring my crayons then.
There we go. Yeah, I'll connect you if we connect next month for the Dropkick Murphy show. I'd love to get a pick, and so I'll bring you a little book
You
if we
got
can
it.
that
All
work.
right.
Yeah, and then next month you're on tour. You're on tour. Are you on tour right now? Has it started? Is that?
I am actually sitting in a hotel room in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and we're playing JJ's Beer Garden with Dropkick Murphys tonight. So we're in the second week of a 5-week tour. So this is a good long one. And then we come through Canada and see you guys. And yeah, this is a fun tour. Dropkick guys are great. They're absolutely fantastic people to tour with. So having a good time and look forward to all the shows.
Yeah, they put on a good show, and so do you guys. I wanted to ask one question about where did like how did that connection with Dynalone come? That first album was on side one, correct?
Yeah, that was really just random. When I thought about, I first I wanted to just put it out on my own, just put it on Bandcamp and make it real easy, and then I um, realized that I don't have the time or patience to do that. So I'm like, I'm going to find someone to put it out. So I reached out to a local guy, and then um, I didn't want to go through the traditional channels and have it be too close to, um, Pennywise stuff, or be it in that uh, group of things, and all the baggage that comes with that. I wanted to try something different for this one, a label that has a little more variety. And big fan of the band The Dirty Nil. And at one point I'm like, oh, what label are those guys on? They're a cool band. They're not like your typical Warped Tour punk band. And I saw, oh, they're on Dine Alone, and then I did a little research, and then I found out that City and Color um, uh, were a big part of that. I loved that band, and was like, oh, this seems like a cool label. I'll just send them an email, see if they're interested. They said yes, and that was it. There was no like any any more negotiation or that. And Joel has been really cool, and Jacob and everyone there have been just really easy to work with. And I love Toronto, and the Canada fans have always been really cool to us, and it was cool to try something different, just outside of the box for an old Warped Tour veteran like me.
There we go. Yeah. Yeah, they're great. I didn't realize I did research and looking at their, that Alexis on Fire City in Color kind of camp, kind of,
Yeah.
starting. That's great. Yeah, let's end it there. Any last words maybe for the folks listening?
Oh, well, I mean, come to a Pennywise show, buy a Black Pacific album. We got some music videos coming out, and if you go to my Instagram page or the Black Pacific Band Instagram page, I'm going to be doing a lot of stuff in the future about the album, like the different gear that I used, and because I played guitar on all the tracks, played bass on all the tracks, and it's fun for me finally to be able to do something different besides screaming in a microphone. And I can talk about, which amps I used and guitars I used and stuff like that. So yeah, check out all the socials. I'm going to try and disconnect and not be on there all the time, as I suggest everyone does. And watch out for AI. And yeah, Rad Dads Unite.